Hello, everyone. Welcome.
Hello.
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 Hi.
Good evening. Thank you so much for
Hi, good
attending.
evening. Good evening.
Hi.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hi, everyone. We're just waiting for folks to come in. We'll start very, very soon. We're super excited to get the program started. If you could all mute yourselves, please. We'll start very, very soon. Just letting folks in. Thank you so much for attending. Okay. Hello, hello. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
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 Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
So,
Hello.
hi, everyone. Thank you so much for attending. I'm gonna go ahead and get started. If you can all mute, please. We're just, I'm gonna get started with the program. I'm really eager. We have an exciting program planned for you this evening. Lots to talk about. So again, welcome. My name is Nidia Cordova. I'm the Alumni Relations Manager at the CUNY School of Professional Studies. I am also a proud alum of the school, class of 2023. I'd like to start by welcoming all CUNY alumni and guests to the 8th annual CUNY Multi-Campus Alumni Career Development and Networking event. So before we get started, I want to take this opportunity to thank our amazing career services team at CUNY SPS. It's always a joy to collaborate with your office, and you'll hear more from Shannon Gallo, who manages the Office of Career Services at CUNY SPS later on when we reach the networking part of the evening's program. So the goal of this event is to offer a broader opportunity for CUNY graduates to connect with each other, grow their networks, and advance in their careers. So 8 years ago, this effort began with only 4 CUNY campuses, and this year we are thrilled to welcome graduates from a total of 19 CUNY campuses. And these campuses include CUNY School of Professional Studies, CUNY School of Law, Brooklyn College, Queens College, City College of New York Alumni Association, Baruch College, Bronx Community College, the Colin Powell School for Civic and Global Leadership, College of Staten Island, the Craig Newmark Graduate School of Journalism, the CUNY Graduate Center, the CUNY Graduate School of Public Health and Health Policy, the CUNY School of Labor and Urban Studies, Gutman Community College, Hunter College, LaGuardia Community College Alumni Association, Lehman College, Queensborough Community College, York College, and the CUNY Alumni Activation Program, which provides job announcements and resources to all CUNY alumni. So thank you again so much to everyone for participating in this event. And alumni, please be in contact with your Office of Alumni Relations at your campus. We want to hear from you. We're here to support you. So we have an exciting program planned for you this evening, but first I would like to introduce my wonderful colleague, Trang Lechan, who's the Director of Alumni Relations at CUNY School of Law, who will provide some information. Take it away, Trang.
Thank you, Nidia. Welcome, everyone, to our incredible panelists and attendees. Once again, my name is Trang Lechan, the Director of Alumni Relations at CUNY Law. And before we dive into the conversation, I'd like to go over a few quick housekeeping rules just to kind of make sure everything runs smoothly during this evening. So we're thrilled to be back again hosting the 8th annual CUNY Multi-Campus event. And the event will be recorded with auto captioning, and we encourage everyone to stay engaged by using the chat box for any questions during the Q&A portion. So our team will be monitoring the questions, so we'll be presenting to the panelists during the Q&A session. After the main discussion, we'll also have a breakout rooms for networking. So we encourage you to stick around and take advantage of that opportunity to stick around and meet your fellow CUNY alums and also our great, wonderful speakers that took their time out today to kind of meet you all and share some valuable information. And now, without further ado, I'm excited to turn this over to our moderator for the evening, Rhea Faniel, the Senior Associate Director of Employer Relations and Partnerships from City College. She will be guiding us through this incredible discussion. And just a friendly reminder, panelists, as a quick reminder, please introduce yourself before answering your first questions, as our audience can appreciate the breadth of expertise on today's panel. So, Rhea, take it away.
Good evening, everyone. I'm really excited to be here today. This is the second time that I've been involved in this initiative, and we have a wonderful program planned for you today. We have a esteemed panel of CUNY graduates from various colleges, and as you go on and listen to it, their advice, feel free to take notes. And as they mentioned, there will be an opportunity for you to go on and ask questions as we go forward in this. I'm going to start with the first questions, and during this time, I just want to remind you that to also introduce yourself before you answer your questions. I've got a comprehensive list here, and I think it will help you all get a better understanding of the salary negotiation process and all that it entails and everything that's involved. So my first question is going to be for Catherine Law. What is the first thing an employee should do once they decide to ask for a salary increase?
Hi, Rhea. Thank you so much. My name is Catherine Law. I wear multiple hats. One, first and foremost, I'm in Queens College alum. I have a background in accounting. And my other hat I wear is I work at Baruch College. I am the Assistant Director for Employer Relations, but I have 30 plus years of experience in every single field you could think of. You're talking about accounting, finance, publishing, marketing, and profit. I've been there, so I have a wealth and breadth of different industries. I'm a career pivoter. So this question regards to what do you do when you want to negotiate, for a salary increase? I always tell everyone to always go back to the job description. What was the listing? In New York State, there are actually, I think, about 14 states that have the Salary Transparency Act. In New Jersey, for those who, I just learned that the other day, New Jersey is one of the other states that have come aboard, where when you look at a job posting, by law, if it's public, they have to tell you the range of the salary. So it could be from $50,000 to $100,000. So you know the range that they're looking for. And that's how you're going to go negotiate. One, you know the range if you're within these 15, 16 states. The other thing is look at your background. I say, what is your leverage? My leverage is 30 plus years of experience, maybe in, not solid 10 years in one particular field, but what leverage do you have? Experience, certifications, education is great, but I did accounting, but it wasn't for me. So your degree doesn't define you. As you can see, I'm a pivoter. So look at the job description, look at the salary range. What have you done if you're looking to change, but you have to look at the market value. What are people, in your state or in the field that you're going into? What is the industry standard? What I like to use is ONET. I don't know if many of you, I still use ONET just to see what is the national average? What is New York City? What is New York State? ONET is amazing. Look at PayScale, Glassdoor. There's so many resources out there with the internet, and you can even use AI to look at all this for you as opposed to looking every website. So look at your research, do your research, gather all the information, because you have to be confident when you approach this conversation about negotiation. Remember that adage of the art of, negotiation, the art of war, right? You're going into a conversation. If I feel, with my background as a human resource person, recruiter, if I don't feel that you're confident, then why am I going to give you that extra $5,000, to $10,000? if you don't come into conversation, look, Catherine, I have X amount of years, I have the certification, I bring to this table X, and I know people in New York State or New York City are paid this. You arm yourself with that research and the confidence. And again, I'm gonna give you a little tip again, and I'm so sorry for anyone who's in human resources or a recruiter, there's always a buffer. So if the salary range says the highest is 100,000 and say you don't get 100,000, I'm offering you 90, I always save that extra just in case for that one candidate, and I can go over too. So always know that you should always ask, but don't shoot for $1 million if you are not worth $1 million. Of course, I think you're all worth it, but again, it's the leverage. So when you go to negotiate, do the research. That's the biggest thing.
All right. The next question goes to James Casey, and it ties in a little bit to what Catherine discussed. How can a job candidate find out what salaries and benefits are standard for their career field? James?
Thank you and good evening. I'm speaking to you from San Antonio, Texas. My name is Jim Casey. I work in the School of Professional Studies in a couple different hats. One is as a founding faculty member in the MS in Research Administration and Compliance program. The second hat is I'm the academic community leader for the program. So I'm involved in course evaluations, assessments, and building for the future. And so it's really exciting, given my 30 years in the research administration field, to be able to not only train but mentor students in our program for the future. Now, when I say research administration, it can be called grant administration. Some people call it project management. It depends on whether, you know, if you work in a public university, private university, a nonprofit, any level of government, the federal government, state, local, it has different names, but really what we're talking about here is in the RAC program, training our students to become thought leaders. And so it's not a bureaucrat. I've always felt that way. Even before I went into research administration, we have a lot of folks in the field that come from different areas. And I practiced law before I went into the field. I was a newspaper reporter, and I worked in local government in the Midwest. And in fact, it was managing local government grants that helped me jump over into managing university grants. So in our RAC program, every semester in my class, which I teach the overarching foundational course in the program, is, we have students that either aren't in the field or they're in a different sector of grants management and they want to move over. And I tell them it can be done. You can work for the city of New York and move into in any role and move into grants administration. You can work at a private university and move over to CUNY or to a public university. So, it's a very exciting field, and we have a very strong program with excellent faculty. Our leadership in Jenna Copland and Samantha Budusing are top notch. And, I've been there from the beginning, so I'm starting my 8th year teaching in the program. But I would say that, as I've gotten older, I've always enjoyed the international aspect of what we do in the field, which is international projects, negotiating international contracts. Some of that, of course, now is under stress due to current decisions in the White House regarding giving U.S. government money to outside entities. That is not, that is going to be an issue going forward that the university community is handling. But I love international projects and always did. The summer after my first year of law school, I went to London for a summer, and it was back when the Soviet Union existed. So yes, I was in law school before the internet. And I've made peace with the fact that I remember the working world before the internet. But you know, some things are coming back around with current political changes in Russia. And more recently, I'd say in the next 7 years, and I bring this into my RAC class, is data protection, privacy issues, and of course now artificial intelligence. And so I have upskilled myself since 2017 in these areas in advance of the European Union GDPR, which is the General Data Protection Regulation. So the one thing I reinforce with my students is to always look to the future, always upskill. It doesn't matter if you're in the field 2 years, 20 years, 30 years. We all have to learn more. And that is because the field is rapidly changing. And certainly there are a lot of political issues going on right now in Washington that are affecting people in the field. But I prefer to think of it as opportunities for being flexible rather than overly negative about what's going on at the present time. So, you know, it's great to be on this panel. We all bring different angles to these issues. I will be speaking mostly in the niche area of grant administration, research administration, and to the point about salary and benefits in our field. You know, aside from what was mentioned at the beginning of this session, you know, the professional associations like NCURA, which is the National Council of University Research Administrators, SRA, which is the Society of Research Administrators International. If you're a member of the European Association of Research Managers, like I am, they have a career center and job opportunities posted there. So those are often behind the paywall of being a member of those organizations. But there is one other source I would recommend you, which is the Research Administrator Discussion Board. That is public. You do not need to be a member. It is run by a nonprofit and has for at least since 1995. And you can sign up for it regardless of your email address. I think I've sent that link to Nydia for posting later as a resource. But you can get daily updates if you want, and daily postings of jobs in New York, all across the US, or even in foreign countries. So, you know, that's something where you don't need to be a member of an association, but there is a lot of clarity in that in terms of what the opportunities are. I also believe a lot in terms of networking within the field, because it's that underground job economy that often is not posted where opportunities arise. And so, you know, you know, the whole issue of salary and benefits are one that you can find in different ways beyond the established associations. So, you know, I'll be on for the rest of the time. Certainly afterward, I'm more than available to answer questions offline or whatever, but welcome, and I'll turn it back over to you.
All right, thank you very much. I have a really big favor. Could you all please check your microphones? I know sometimes when you jump on or you're listening, you forget to mute. And what is going on is we're getting a lot of feedback. So folks are missing out on this wonderful information. So I would just ask people to take a quick breath and please mute. It would definitely be helpful for the people who are online. We don't want to miss out. Okay. Thank you very much. I wanted to thank Catherine and James for giving us some insight on finding out about a little bit about salary increase so far, and where are great ways to look for salary and benefits standards. As a career services person, for people who are more on an entry level or who are even, coming in and doing some career change. And we get folks that are, come back, I call them boomerang people, to City College and ask about that. Simply, we're here, we're resources. Resources like Catherine and myself, we specifically work for career services. We collect information on current salaries that new graduates are getting. We can tell you if you're within the range, if you're in salary negotiations. You can even practice with us a little bit. We can also set up informational interviews for you with people who are in the positions that you would like to entertain or, to look at. But not only that, to say, hey, let me talk through this person. Ray connected me with a person and they can probably help me manage this. So also, I'm always telling you, come back and you use your career office. So we're going to move on, and we're going to move on to Shanna Midelton. And as an employer, what negotiation tactic would you suggest avoiding? What don't you want to hear from somebody?
Thanks, Rhea, and hi, everyone. So happy to be here with the larger CUNY community. I went to undergrad at Lehman College. I did my master's in international relations at City College, and then I did another master's in economics at Brooklyn College. So quite a few CUNY colleges under my belt. So I started my career in city government. I started at the New York City Office of Management and Budget as a budget analyst. And it was really at OMB where I got my first life lessons of like salary negotiations. I spent 9 years at OMB, but not consecutively. I stayed at OMB for 3 years. I left, I went to a nonprofit, and then I came back and stayed for another 6 years. But while I was at OMB, I was able to grow in various roles. I started as an analyst. I eventually grew up to be part of their senior executive leadership team. And OMB was a great place to start your career. It's sort of the hub of city government. It controls the budget and it allocates that over $100 billion budget across to all city agencies. So if you're looking for a place to just start your career and understand how funding works, how funding drives policy, the relationship between policy and budget, it's a really good place to start your career. After OMB, I transitioned to City Hall, where I supported the first deputy mayor as a senior advisor on education policy. And this was in the middle of COVID, so a lot of my work was centered on like, how do we reopen schools? How do we ensure schools have enough cleaning supplies and PPE? And how do we find space so we can social distance, and keeping up with CDC policies and directions. So that was, it was a tough time, but, very exciting work. Currently, I serve as the CFO, the Chief Financial Officer at DCAS. And if anyone knows the acronym for DCAS, I will be impressed. It's a mouthful, but it's the Department of Citywide Administrative Services. And essentially, DCAS provides a variety of services to the public as well as to other city agencies. We are responsible for cleaning and securing with security all citywide buildings. We administer the citywide civil service exam. So if you want to work for city government, like NYPD, FDNY, any office you can think of, DCAS administers those civil service exams. We fund energy efficiency projects across the city, across CUNY campuses, across cultural institutions. For example, if your institution wants to implement a green roof, DCAS allocates grants for public institutions to help move us closer to climate and energy efficiency goals. We also maintain the citywide fleet, so those NYPD cars, those sanitation parks, vehicles you see on the street. DCAS ensures that those vehicles are maintained and repaired throughout the year. And we manage the city's real estate portfolio, meaning if there's city land or city space, we lease it out, we auction those sites out to the public. So throughout these various roles, I've had to negotiate new salaries. I've managed teams. I manage a team currently where I have to approve promotions. So my advice today will really be, centered from the city government perspective. And the perspective of someone who's had to navigate some of these challenges myself. So to the question, what do I not want to see? What to avoid? So I would say the first thing is like I never want to see someone who does not negotiate, right? Usually when I make an offer, I do hope that the person will counter. And I think that, that shows me I'm about to hire someone and I know, if when that person gets their portfolio, they will not shy away from having the tough conversations or attempting to negotiate. So I will say, never always try your best to negotiate, even if you ask the question and the response back is a hard no, we cannot. This is the maximum salary. At least you asked, right? And there could be other things you can negotiate other than salary that you can sort of open the space for by just not accepting the initial offer. But once you decide to negotiate, when you decide to negotiate, you should absolutely ground that negotiation, similar to what Catherine mentioned, in research, right? Knowing that your ask is in line with industry standards and understanding the industry, right? Specific to the industry that you're targeting. For instance, city government salaries are absolutely very different from private sector salaries, right? You can't expect to make the same thing you would make in Bank of America in finance, in city government in finance. Vastly different, but also the benefits packages are vastly different. City government is known to have a more robust benefits package, and that has value to it. So asking those questions, doing the research, knowing the field, the specs for the field that you're targeting, is super important. If you're you're a new hire, entry level, and you're applying for a new job, I would absolutely caution against sharing your current salary when you're negotiating. There's actually laws prohibiting, like in New York City, maybe other municipalities as well, I'm not sure, but definitely in New York City in 2017, the city council did pass a law that prohibits employers from asking you your salary history. And that's really to promote salary equity and sort of remedy some of the historical inequities and salary disparities that exists in the workplace. And the final thing I would say as an employer, I don't like to hear, for instance, if this is, an existing employee seeking a promotion, the sole reason that employee presents at, attaches to the ask is the fact that they've been with the organization for years. Or the reason shouldn't be because someone who's been here less than I am got a promotion. I always say focus and ground your negotiation on your skills, your performance, the value add, and why you've earned or you believe you're qualified for the position, and less so, because of longevity. Longevity has some weight to it, but at the end of the day, you want to be able to demonstrate and persuade your supervisor, your manager, of why you've earned that promotion that you're seeking. And I will pass it back to Rhea.
For me, I do that all the time. Excuse me. I'm talking all the way to what's going on. Anyway, we're going to move on to our in-house attorney, Mr. Assad Bhatti. We have a question for you. As an at-will employee, how far can an employee push for salary or benefit increase? But before you answer that, tell us a little bit about yourself, Mr. Bhatti.
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Assad Bhatti. First and foremost, I want to give a shout out to CUNY Law. It's been almost 20 years since I graduated from there. Admitted to practice in New York State, the district courts of the Eastern District of New York, and I'm looking forward to being admitted to the Supreme Court later this month. I'm based out of Long Island, nearly 2 decades of experience advising individuals, businesses, in employment law, business law. I've done civil rights, many other areas of the law that affect individuals and businesses. My office provides strategic legal counsel to clients ranging from entrepreneurs, unions, corporate entities, and everyday New Yorkers. I also serve as general counsel to several small businesses. My office has helped clients with drafting, negotiating all types of agreements. We've handled employment discrimination claims both on behalf of employees and in defense of our employer clients. We do commercial contracts. We've done foreclosure defense work. We handle compliance and many other legal issues. In addition to the court system, we've represented clients before the EEOC, New York State Division of Human Rights, the Department of Labor, and many, many other administrative bodies. On a side note, I also work as a disaster assistance representative for the state of New York, Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Services, where I work with local municipalities and FEMA to secure federal disaster relief funding. In addition to all of that, in the past, I worked on the federal healthcare policy review. Specifically, I worked on the Affordable Care Act in partnership with CUNY Law and George Washington University. I earned my law degree from CUNY School of Law. I have 2 master's degrees in human resource management and professional studies from Stony Brook, where I did my undergrad in business administration. I'm fluent in multiple languages, and I love solving problems, helping people and businesses in any way that I can. So now let's talk about the law. And I'm not going to take for granted what everybody knows about the law. I'll just give you guys a brief overview of what the law is and where it stands. New York is an at-will employment state. So unless you're an employee who has a contract, for example, you have a union agreement or an employment contract, you're considered an at-will employee. Now, what does that mean? It means that your employer is not obligated to grant you a particular salary or benefits or increase any benefits. You as an employee are not guaranteed to continue your employment if you push for any changes. So it's 2 sides to that coin. You can leave when you want, and your employer can also terminate your employment whenever they want, as long as it's not through you doing a protected activity. So with all that being said, there's no legal cap on negotiation when you're an at-will employee. You can do whatever you want. You can ask for whatever you want. But in real life, that doesn't really work. And some of the panelists have spoken to that, so I'm going to reiterate some of those points. You can ask for $1 million, but are you worth it? In some cases, you may be. If you're generating $2 million for a company, yes, you can ask for a heavy salary. But your position and what you generate has a huge effect on what you're going to ask for. One of the things that was brought up earlier is this new law, which is the transparency law in New York, which I think is an excellent way for people who are entering the employment force or somebody who's changing careers or trying to move up can gauge the range of what they should be expected to pay. I remember prior to this, graduating law school, we had no idea how much we were going to get paid. We had, we expected to get paid, but it was completely, the range was all over the place. With this new law, people can look it up. You know what you're going into, and there's resources out there for everybody to check out. Most of them are available online. Our professionals here can provide some of those resources. So that's one of the things that I would look out for. So I was touching upon some of those protected activities that you can't be fired for. Those have to do with unionizing. I'm not going to go into it, but if you attempt to unionize, you're protected under the National Labor Relations Act. You can't be fired for any discriminatory reasons. All right. And those are protected by New York State labor law, New York State human rights law, federal discrimination laws. Those include characteristics such as race, gender, age, disability, amongst many others. If you feel like you have been or you missed out on an opportunity at your workplace, you may have a case against your employer for one of those things. Like I mentioned, pay transparency enacted in 2022, if I'm not mistaken, mandates that any employer with 4 or more employees must disclose their salary range in their job posting. So again, excellent place to start if you're negotiating. Another thing that I come up with is look at the industry that you're in. Every industry has different ranges. So depending on what industry you're going into and where you fit into in that industry, are you entry level, mid level, high level? You're going to find a entry point, and use that to your advantage. Shanna had mentioned she sits on the side, the negotiating side. She wants to hear. Every employer wants to know that they're hiring somebody who is capable of advocating, right? To a certain degree. You don't want people advocating all the time, but they do want somebody who can advocate and understand. So that's one of the things. Another thing I wanted to bring up, and I kind of touched on it, was the employer's financial capacity. To be able to give you that, that salary that you're looking for. Most of that's built into the business model of employers. They know how much their employee is going to produce, how it affects their bottom line, and you have to fall within that range. And this is where those ranges come into place. One of the things that I would suggest is leverage your performance if you're looking for a raise, right? Don't do it just because the person sitting next to you has done it, or don't base it on time. Have your own plan and exclude coworkers from your plan. It's an individual thing. I can tell you, I've worked with physicians, I've worked with a lot of executives, and there is no set roadmap on how to approach it. Everybody's situation is unique, and it's based on what your history is with the company. So leverage that, leverage your performance. A good tactic to use is if you're having a performance review and you know it's going to be great, that'll be a great time to throw a little snippet in there and say, listen, guys, you give me 100, I'm getting 5 stars. I'm looking to move up in the chain. Let's have that conversation. So one of the risks that you might be taking as an at-will employee is that if you ask for too much, you may risk termination. Flexibility is extremely important. Let's say hypothetically, you're at 100,000 and that's what you're making, and you're going to double your salary. It's not going to happen. You have to be smart about that. You have to be tactical in when you're asking for that. Build a strong case for yourself. For example, based on my contributions in the company, this is what I improved. And so based on that, I think I would be a prime candidate for such and such percentage increase in my salary. Also consider non-salary benefits. Sometimes it's not always about money. Sometimes it's about asking for additional benefits. And that can come in a wide range of non-monetary ways. You can negotiate for vacation days, flexible work arrangements, or possibly professional development opportunities. So those are some things that would I would take note of and bring up. One important thing is know when to stop. And again, it goes back to my point. If you are an at-will employee, you can be terminated for any reason as long as it's a non-discriminatory or not a protected reason. So you don't want to push the boundary too far. And that's unless you're willing to forego employment. And some people get stuck in a position where they do not see any improvement or any increase, and they're just stuck at that same level. And I've come across employers where they know somebody's doing a great job. They're not going to move them up, because if they do, that department will fall apart. So that person will be stuck there. It's a strategic decision on the part of an employer, but it doesn't work out for the employee. So know when it's time to leave. It's very important to weigh those things. So just to kind of sum up, don't issue an ultimatum unless you have a backup plan. Don't demand anything that's wildly out of line with market rates or the company's financial reality. You may not know what the company's financial reality is, but if you see people getting laid off, not a good time to ask for a raise. Simple. Don't engage in unprofessional behavior. It's not going to get you a raise. Watch out with social media. It's been coming up a lot more in recent times since social media has taken over. And if you keep pushing and you keep getting rejections, in all likelihood, that's probably a signal for you to back off and wait for a later date. So I hope that answers the question, and I'll give it back to Rhea.
You're muted, Rhea.
Oh, the mute thing. Okay, so we're moving on to the next set of questions. And this one again is for you, Catherine. What can a job candidate or an employee do to prepare for a conversation to negotiate benefits or salary increase?
I think you mentioned also Assad, and I mentioned earlier, when you're ready to negotiate, it's the art of negotiation. You have to be prepared, and it's research again. And Assad had mentioned timing. If you haven't had a review yet, don't ask before your performance evaluation, ask after. Accumulate all the things. If you've been given awards, if you have accolades, make sure you mention these things. Like, look, this is what I've done. I've, what beyond the percentage of what I brought in, X, Y, and Z. Show what kind of an asset you are to the organization. And yes, sometimes it is, as I mentioned, budgetary. In this day and age, with things going on, a lot of times we don't know how much is in the budget, right? I don't know what's in the budget for my department. I have no idea. Unless it's my business, then I know how much I can pay you and how much wiggle room. If I really want you, I'll give you the extra. And again, it's also, is it really, the extra 10,000? Is it that much? Does that mean that much to you? What if I give you 5,000 now and give you comp time? Flexibility, work from home 5 days, 1 week, and then next month you can have, you'd have to be in a little bit more. Look at the flexibility of the organization. COVID, that's the one thing COVID did for us, the flexibility of time and working from home. And look at this amazing event. We can do this online. Before we couldn't. Imagine we were in person. Well, it'd be great to see everyone, but that's a lot of manpower that we don't have to do. So leverage your research, the timing of it. Then again, research again, what is the industry? What is the market? Are people, the certain industries laying off people? Should I be asking that much? So what is important to you? Is it really, can you wait for that $5,000 later? Or do you need it right now? What are you going to do with it? Half of it might be for taxes, okay? So we have to be mindful of those things. Everyone should get a higher salary, but if you're not doing well and your performance reviews are not going well, you're not meeting certain, quotas, or you're not doing certain things and you're reprimanded, not a good time. Because again, at will, New York State, you could be let go for bad performance. Remember HR, there's 3 times: verbal, conversation, written, and then, oh, we can't give you because you underperformed. Look at your evaluations. If you've had some things as goals, you didn't meet those goals. You need to work on those goals. Not a good time to ask for an increase. Benefits, again, you want to, do flexible, spending, or you want to do X. Look at what what you're looking for. Benefits, sometimes, yes, I'll look for, if you're going to pay for all my medical, I'd rather take that than extra $10,000 in my pocket, because medical is expensive and it's great to have medical. So you have to do what's personal. What I do, with everyone on this panel, we have different, reasons for certain things. You have to do your research. Again, I go back also, research, it's the confidence. Have that. Yes, I'm a great performer. I'm a great employee. Look at these accolades that I've done. Look at the asset I am to the organization. they can't do and give you this money right now, you can negotiate. Well, how about X now, and later on we can do the other half of it. So that's part of the negotiations.
Right, Catherine, that was great advice that you gave. And just one thing that I want to add in, your performance appraisal is about them going over your accomplishments and your goals and whether you met them or exceeded them. It is also the opportunity for you to have conversations about your self-development. Whether it's classes you want to take to bring you up to speed, whether it's, going back for a degree, or if it's, I didn't really have a time to supervise people, but, is there a project that I can lead? I think about my own career before I joined higher education. Someone told me, Rhea, the squeaky wheel gets the oil, you better push for yourself. And I pushed and I asked for some high visibility projects and I really put myself out there, but I also had to deliver. And when I did, that promotion came right after that. So that's just things you got to stretch a little bit, and advocate for yourself. The key word is advocate. It's negotiate, but it's also advocate. So I'm moving on to the next question. And this is going to our in-house legal expert. What labor law would you suggest employees know before you even begin negotiating any type of career advancement? So any insight you can give us on that, or it's a non-factor, please let us know.
Sure. Okay. So I think every employee should have somewhat basic knowledge of every single law that applies to them. Right. And I'm not going to name any, I'm going to go through a list. I want everybody here to know when you're entering the workforce, you need to be aware that there are laws in New York State and New York City that protect you as an employee. New York State and New York City specifically have some of the best laws in the country for employees. So I'm just going to run through them real quick. So if you guys have any additional questions, please feel free to ask and I'll share this with all of the attendees. But first and foremost is the New York State human rights law. This is the law that prohibits discrimination based on the protected classes, such as race, age, gender, disability, sexual orientation, and a couple of other things. It's important because when you're negotiating, you want to make sure that you're not being passed up based on any of these things. Next one is New York State labor law. Why is it important? What does it do? Basically, it's a wage and hour protection law. Governs minimum wage, overtime, salary transparency. So when you're negotiating this, you want to see if you're exempt or non-exempt, whether it applies to you or whether it doesn't. For non-exempt employees, confirm overtime eligibility because it can make a huge difference in the amount of money that you're taking home. Next one, everybody almost touched on this. This is the New York State pay transparency law. It basically requires employers with 4 or more employees to post salary range. The next one I have on my list is equal pay for equal work. This one requires equal pay for substantially similar work, regardless of gender or any other protected characteristic. So if you discover a colleague with a similar duty as yours, and he's earning more, you may have a claim. Obviously, you're gonna have to prove it, but it's something to always be aware of. In any lawsuit, if you're suing your employer, always bear in mind that you have the burden of proving everything. It's very important. The next one I have on my list is the New York City Fair Chance Act. This applies to employees with criminal histories. And what this does is that it mandates that employers follow a specific process before denying advancement based on a criminal record. So if a criminal history arises during the negotiations, you should know your rights and challenge any unfair denials. The next one on my list is FMLA and New York paid medical leave. Why does it matter? Why does it matter? If career advancement involves new responsibilities, ensure your right to leave are protected. FMLA provides unpaid, very important, unpaid leave, while New York offers paid leave for bonding, caregiving, or and there's a couple of other things, but caregiving, it's like one of the ones I want to talk about. Again, your promotion or any movement in your position should not jeopardize any leave eligibility. And then finally, contract and at will considerations. We've already reiterated this. New York, by default, is an at will state. If possible, get something in writing. It doesn't necessarily turn it into a contract agreement, but at least you and your employer have something down that this is what your job is, this is what you're supposed to be doing, and it gives both parties a framework in case there's any issues. I think those are the main laws that I wanted to just kind of talk about very briefly. Thank you.
All right, you are so welcome. My next question is for Shanna. What advice would you share with a job candidate or employee who is still building the confidence to advocate for themselves?
Thanks, Rhea. So I would say, as long as you approach the conversation with respect, with integrity, right? You do your research, the outcome should not be bad. And most times it won't be bad. They're probably outliers. So if you're dealing with an unreasonable person, let's be realistic. Not everyone in a management role belongs in a management role. And some managers are good and great, and some managers are not. But for the most part, right, if you, at the end of the day, you're dealing with human beings, right? So tone matters and being respectful, firm, but respectful in your approach goes a long way. At the end of the day, right, if you're grounded in I think that approach, if you get a yes, great. If you get a no, you still have a job because it should not go left, right? You've had a professional conversation with your supervisor or manager. You maintain those relationships, and if it's a no, then you can decide what you want to do long term, whether it's time to move on to somewhere else or whatever you decide to do. But I know salary negotiating, talking about money and salary can be intimidating, but really think about, what is it that you're actually scared about, right? Is it the outcome? Like, what are the risks that you're worried about? And start thinking those through. I would say take Rhea up and Catherine up on the opportunity to talk to your career services, do a mock interview, and talk through with your peers. Like, we'll be surprised that many of us are having the same experiences, and if we talk about it and share it with each other, like, you're not the only person dealing with the challenge or the fear. So I think just talking about it, thinking about it, running the scenarios, running out the scenarios, like, what if this happens, what if it goes left, what if the answer is no, how will I respond, what should I do? And I think thinking about that, coming prepared, will take down a lot of the fear that we're having in terms of, being afraid or hesitant to advocate for yourself.
All right, thank you so much for that. The next question is going to go to James. Does a job candidate need to negotiate their salary specific only to their current salary level?
I would say that your current salary should be part of your the mix of considerations you have. Okay. Because what you don't want to do, and it's been alluded here already tonight, is if you have been underpaid in prior jobs and you use your prior job as the benchmark for the next job, you don't want to get into a position of having chronically been underpaid for 10 or 20 years in a row. And that can happen to anyone. It's happened to me. And since I was I entered the working world when there was far less rules and regs, no transparency laws in most jurisdictions, and you didn't have the internet and Glassdoor and Monster and, the research administrator discussion board listserv that I mentioned earlier. It was much more hard to find salaries 25 years ago than it is today. So that's the plus of all of it. But I do think, you need to look at the mix. It's not just the salary, as all of us here agree. There's other benefits. In higher education and grants administration, I have had, if you want to move up into management, which is like from a pre-award grant administrator to an assistant director, associate director, director, AVP for research, and maybe VP for research at some point down the road, you're going to need to move on to move up. It is highly unlikely that you're going to in universities at least stay at one university for 30 years and move up from the entry level job you took at 23 years old and become a VP by 53, for instance. That's pretty rare. So I've had to move up. To move up, which was part of my mission, I had to move on, which is why I grew up in the Midwest. I worked at Northwestern University in Chicago, in Evanston, Illinois. I moved to Texas. I worked at Carnegie Mellon in Pittsburgh. I spent 5 years at Washington, D.C. at American University. And in all of those moves, the one thing you do want to ask for is relocation expenses. Now, if you live in the New York area, New York City, and you're going to work in the New York City area, you may not get much for that, if at all. But if you're moving across the United States, you do have to ask for it. And as I recall, because then you want to worry about tax implications, and I did this research years ago. Let's say you're going to move from New York City to Kansas City for a new job. You're going to want maybe, I don't know, $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 for relocation. You and your family and kids, perhaps. Or if you're a single person, it doesn't matter. But, at the end of the day, you want to ask for relocation expenses and ensure that the moving costs are directly paid by the university to the moving company. Because if it's paid to you and then you have to cut a check to the moving company, that becomes taxable income to you. And you got to pay taxes on it. So you don't want to do that. That's something for the relocation area. So relocation is very important if you desire to move up in the field of, let's say, university grants administration. So that's a wrinkle for my specific professional world. But I think you need to look at the entire mix of what the job that you want brings. We all agree that money is not the whole reason you should take a job. But you don't want to underpay yourself, so you have to know your value. And I think, and I was late to the party on this because I entered the working world at a different time. But in the last 10 years, and you'll notice this on LinkedIn and on social media in general, people should be branding themselves. What do you stand for as a research administrator? We never thought like that 25 years ago. What's our brand? We just waited to get promoted and move up. But, I think now, even those folks that are mid-career or later should be thinking, what is your brand and what do you bring to the table? And I think we've all been talking about that here today anyway, but it goes back to the brand. And, I think the one practical tip I can give, regardless of what sector you work in, or if you work in New York or San Antonio, wherever, have a good 2-minute elevator speech. Because I've had those in elevators. I'll go to meetings in Washington. I'll meet a VP from at Harvard, let's say. And he's like, hey, we got a job here, we're looking to fill, would you be interested? And this person would say, give me your 2-minute elevator speech. I have learned over the years to master that, and I know what I want, and I know what I stand for. You know, I didn't know that really at 23 or 25, but law schools didn't think like that back then either, to be frank. I mean, even the top tier law schools didn't think like that. I was on law review in law school, so that opened up jobs for me that, you know, my classmates who weren't high ranked or weren't on moot court or law review couldn't get access to. So I was lucky, you know, in that regard, because writing was a strong suit of mine. But, you know, I think that's probably one of the takeaways for all the CUNY alum on this session tonight is, you know, have a gut check of what you stand for and have the confidence to project that. And because you never know where the opportunity may come to give that 2-minute elevator speech. So, you know, I just think that the whole idea of what your current salary is, you know, keep that in the back of your mind, but you have to look at where you're going, what the job is that you're interested in, and what you would be willing to compromise slightly on to get what you want. And does it fit into your long-term plan? You know, my long-term plan was really to work in a lot of different sectors. You know, I went to law school, but I didn't want to be Perry Mason. You know, I wanted to be a writer. I got on law review. I love to write, and I do that. But I kind of bounced around. So even compared to many of my contemporaries, I went to big research universities. I went to small master's universities in the middle of nowhere. And that's because in university work, you often get opportunities at the smaller schools to do things you'd never get at a large university. Let's say NYU, for instance, you know, or CUNY, but and that's because the big schools have separate offices. So if I work at, for instance, Bradley University in Peoria, Illinois, which was after Northwestern, and people in Chicago thought I was nuts to move to the farmlands of central Illinois. But I did lobbying, which meant I worked with the Illinois congressional delegation. And that is something I never would have done had I stayed at Northwestern, because they have their own lobbyists, you know, and that's the whole separate world. So, you know, I think I'd like to think that we could train everybody to understand this when they were all young and 23 years old. But the reality is a lot of things all of us have learned here tonight have come through trial and maybe some slight error in our careers. But that's okay, because I think most people have a slight setbacks in their careers if you work long enough. You know, it's like the old saying, everybody will suffer a setback, but it's how you bounce back from it that defines your character. And, you know, there's going to be, you know, the grants administration world is a perfect example of that right now. And, you know, so that I think is just a way of saying that there's a bunch of considerations everybody needs to consider when you're looking, and your current salary is just one part of it. And I'll leave it at that. I hope I answered the question, and back to Rhea.
All right, thank you. In the interest of time, because we do want to network, I'm going to give this last question to Catherine, so we can move on and do our network. So are you ready, Catherine?
Yep.
Okay. Because I think there are some people out here that might need this. And one of the things you expressed in the beginning of all the pivoting you did in different industries, and I myself have had a similar experience, probably not as many as you have. So what advice would you give to someone who is looking to change careers and their new field standard salary and benefits are lower than their current field?
Yes, as a career pivoter, because I always want to move myself up. Now, when you're pivoting, and sometimes you'll get that lower salary, And you have to understand, you don't come in with that leverage. So I always tell people, you got to step back to go forward. Sometimes you got to go sideways, and then you go up. You have to look at the bigger picture. Are they offering professional development? What skills do you need to upskill? Yes, leverage your career services. I'm there talking to students. I have alum who come back and say, Catherine, look, I don't want to do this anymore. I can't stand accounting. I want to go into marketing. What? Oh, okay. Well, what do you know about marketing? I don't know. I just want to do marketing. Are you a people person? Are you creative? Just don't pick an area, but you also have to, I hate to say, what do you want to do when you grow up? So when I pivoted, I'd say, yeah, you know what? I can do this. Be comfortable in what you do. You also have to bring a set of expertise. I'm a people person. Therefore, that's why I didn't do accounting anymore. I didn't like numbers, still don't like numbers, but I'm a people person. Thus going into HR, career advising. And here you go. I have empathy. I like to listen to people and go, well, you know what? You're telling me that you want to go into marketing, but you're not creative. I think maybe psychology might be better for you. So you want to, when you're pivoting, do your research. Talk to people, go back to your career services. We're still here for you. Talk to alum here, right? A whole big network. Talk to people, network, biggest thing. I know people hate this. I hate it too. We all have this internal switch. Networking, I flip on. Yes, I want to be home and, on my sofa curled up with a book, but you have to be out there. Go to professional networking, go to webinars, things like this. Talk to people, set up, hey, you graduated X with this degree. How did you move from that to this? Talk to people, coffee chats. You have to put yourself out there when you're pivoting. Go explore the field. Don't just jump right in because you're not going to get that $100,000. No way if you're changing a career. I had to go backwards in order to go forwards. And then as you start getting more comfortable, people starting to see that you're moving up in that particular industry, that's when you can negotiate. But you'd have to do a lot of upskilling, talking to people, maybe volunteering. I've done volunteering in publishing. That's how I got into publishing. Yes, I volunteered 8 years publishing. So 8 years volunteer, mind you, not paid, but I did it because I have a love of that. So do something that you have a passion for. I know it's all cliche. Oh, you have passion. What do you love, that you want to do? It could be a side hustle, an interest. Just look at that way. So when you pivot, talk to us, pick our brains. We're all here. We have various, backgrounds from all industries, even your alum. Talk to your family members, talk to people. That's all it is. Networking. I cannot say enough about networking. You have to put yourself out there. You have to advocate for yourself. No one's going to advocate for you. I don't know who you are. I don't know what your background is. You have to tell me your story. Your resume is a piece of paper with words, but when I talk to you, I can hear the emotion. Like you see how I'm getting, really excited, and you see the passion behind that. So that's what you need to do. Information interviews, mock interviews, talk to us. That's all, again, all part of the process of pivoting.
All right. Thank you, Catherine. And one of the things that I really want to stress to you all is sometimes people think when they are career changing, I got to go back and get another degree. And that is not always the case. One of the things that I want to remind you is that many schools have continuing education programs. So if you need to upskill in technology, you can do that. If you're looking at other careers that I don't want to go back to school for another 2-year or 4-year degree, I know here at City College, we have the Wrangle Infrastructure Program. And by the way, that is for people like in the community. And guess what? You're looking for a job, maybe you haven't found anything. They have different tech areas, and those programs are free. So those are things you also need to look at. There's a lot of resources. I even found out that even within continuing education, there is something called the Helena Rubinstein like fellowship or scholarship, that even if you're going back for continuing education, you can actually apply for that. So you don't have to pay any tuition. Ask questions. A lot of employers come to us and they say, hey, we have these development programs for students or associate's degree. Not all associate's degree students want to go to a 4-year school. They want to get specific skills in a certain area and then go on to work. So look at those types of situations for yourself, because it isn't always about going back to another school. It's going out there, volunteering, taking some continuation continuing education classes. One of the things I want to do is that chat has been lit up, Nydia, with so many questions, a lot of networking, and I love that. I actually saw some people from CCNY. I saw your names up in there, so I wanted to say hi. I'm still here. Hi. And I want to turn this back over to you, Nydia, James, Assad, Shanna, Catherine. Thank you so very much for your knowledge, just being open and really putting your best foot forward to educate our students and alum and encourage them to move forward with salary negotiations. And I will turn it over to our lovely host, Nydia Cordova.
Thank you. Thank you so much to all of you. There's so much information. The chat it's really hard to keep track of the chat. There's some amazing questions, and I think and I'm just gonna get right to it. So, but thank you so much for your expertise and for sharing your insight. So, if we can just go through some of the questions, just go back and forth. So one of the questions is, how should you think about salary ranges when you work remotely? Is it still suitable to use the salary ranges for a state where the main office is located, or should you make adjustment based on the location? Can I ask one person to share their insights on this?
Well,
Jim,
I'll stick my neck out here. Based on what I'm seeing on the research administrator discussion board with job postings and with salaries at universities and nonprofits out east or anywhere in the United States, it doesn't appear that there's been a decline in the amount of hybrid or remote jobs in grant administration, which is good. And it doesn't appear that the salary ranges that I'm seeing are affected by the continued persistence of remote work. And so I haven't seen a big difference there. So that's my perspective.
I'll jump in real quick as well. I can speak to the legal field, and I know that there are a number of general counsel jobs. I am part of a membership committee, and we just get pings all the time on email. I would agree with James on this one. I don't see a change in the range. Now, when somebody gets that job, is that going to be on the lower end of the range versus the higher end? There might be some wiggle room there. But overall, I haven't seen any significant change. Because at the end of the day, if you really think about it, person's still working the same hours. And if you're working from home, the majority of the time, you're probably going to be working more hours than less. So just my 2 cents.
thank you. Thank you, Assad. Do you have the next question?
How should you think about a salary ranges when you work remotely?
I just asked.
Oh, did you
I
ask
just
that?
asked that one. Yeah, the next one.
Okay, can I add this one? Do you have any advice for getting into publishing? This is for Catherine Law.
And I think I mentioned it before. For publishing, I kind of fell into it because I volunteered. I happened to be doing some extra work for an organization, and they decided to start a magazine. So I thought, okay, I'm not creative, but sure. I started off as director of operations, and then went into the role of the executive editor. So bottom line is that if you want to go into publishing and you don't have experience in, try volunteering or maybe going to some events in the field. That's something you want to go to. Look at the big houses. Again, I'm old fashioned. They don't have magazines anymore, right? Everything is digital. So go and pick someone's brain. Talk to them. Well, how did you go into this field? I'm interested in. See what skills you need. You know, maybe there's some software programs that you need, but you need to connect with people to know what you're going to get into. But that's a start. But if this person wants to connect with me, feel free to connect with me and I could talk more about it.
So I have a question for Shanna. Is there a percentage cap that can be asked for in addition to the minimum salary of the title? So for example, agencies may say their cap is 10% on the salary offer. Can you add to that? Mhm.
Yeah, so as a standard policy, usually, again, the Office of Management and Budget manages these policies and they have to approve almost every hire that an agency brings. They tend to have a policy of a 10% cap. However, exceptions can be made. And it's usually tied to number of years of experience you have specifically in city government, like city service. So if you are someone with, 5-10 years of city service, and you're already at a certain salary level, and you believe that, this position warrants a 20% increase, for you to be competitive compared to what other agencies may be paying for the role, you can absolutely put that out as you offer. It doesn't automatically mean that it will get declined because it's not 10%. It just means that it might be a little more difficult for the agency to get the approval. They have to present all of your qualifications to the Office of Management and Budget in order to get that personnel action approved, but it is possible.
Thank you.
I just have one quick follow-up to that. In the university world, I've experienced it, but it does happen. And if you're in a situation where they offer you the job, but they can't quite make offer you what you want. Let's say it's $5,000 short. I've done it. I know my colleagues have done it, and they say, okay, well, I'm fine on the money, but here's my counter offer. Bump up my title, because that does help in the grants world, that instead of being director of the research office, you could be executive director or senior director. And that way you can trade, if you're upwardly mobile, you can trade a better title for a slightly lower salary. So just to consider, once again, that's localized to my professional world. It may happen in other sectors, but that's been my experience.
Thank you.
Okay. Next question is, with the growing use of AI to screen applicants, is it wise to opt out of the use of AI to screen my job application as a New York applicant? New York applicants have a law provision to opt out of, oh, where did it go? Hold on. Give me 1 minute. I just lost it for a second here. Oh, okay. New York applicants have a law provision to opt out of the use of AI to screen their applicants. My concern is that my application won't be considered if I opt out. What are the pros and cons of making this decision? Can someone assist with that?
I'm going to just throw in a couple things about using AI and chat anyway. From City College, one of the things is folks that are from there we run crazy career fairs, crazy information sessions, and I did a lot this year. The message that came out loud and clear from all my employers, whether they were tech or not, is like, okay, use AI and use different things to help inspire your resume, but your resume should be your own words. And they say, when they look at the resumes, and people have using AI specifically to write them, they said they always know. You're working with and this is for a lot of people that are just coming out of school. So you and I are in the same electrical engineer. We've taken the same classes. We've worked on projects together. We've even done the same internships. We go in and we use the same thing to do our resume or to inspire us. Do you know how much our resumes are going to look alike? A lot. They can pick up on that. They have also said on remote interviews, they've talked a lot about people using chat GBT and other AI tools to help people answer questions. They said they always know. One of my companies saying, if they catch them doing that, they blackball them. You'll never get in. So I tell people, use it to help you, to inspire you with your resumes, your cover letters. Your best resource when you're going out and you get called for an interview is knowing yourself, knowing the company and the department, and knowing the job and matching your skills up and having those compelling stories so people know that you are qualified for the job. If you can't tell the story and give details, forget it. And as far as there's evidence out there in research that they say a lot of people, when they start using these to build resumes, that they actually are biased against certain groups of people, that being BIPOC people. And a lot of folks don't like it. So all I'm saying is keep all that in mind. I don't tell people what to do. I make suggestions and strong suggestions. At the end of the day, we're all adults. You make the decision about how you're going to handle. Those are just some things that I just want to throw out there if you're considering using.
Miss Faniel,
Thank you.
the question was actually in reverse. It's about when applying to jobs, so if you're applying a job and they know that you're from New York, they'll ask you, because we have law protecting New York applicants that says, hey, this employer is using AI to help screen and make decisions. Do you want to opt out of this? So the question is, like, I'm concerned that if I opt out, that I won't even be considered because
I don't know if that's a case. I don't have the proof for that. But all I know is, like, you're looking at tools and they're not perfect. And my concern is some of those things, even though they're not perfect tools, that they may actually opt you out of the situation because of stuff you put in. And that's all I'm saying. And this is based on what employers told me. I understand the question, but I'm just saying it's putting out there. I think if you're good and your resume is tightened up the way it is and it reads the way it's supposed to read, you're going to get the call. You're going to get the call. And especially, and I know who you are because I worked with you. And I'm just going to encourage you and tell you, if you're going out looking, come back and talk to me about that if you're looking at certain companies, because I have people working at those companies. And maybe they can help you and give you some advice about tweaking your resume a little bit more to that job, because a lot of people aren't using it and getting called. I'm just concerned that the opposite is going to happen. It's not a perfect system. There are glitches in there, and that's all I'm saying. At the end of the day, try it out. Test it out. Have you tried it and used it? And the question becomes, if you did this, have you been called? And if it hasn't improved your numbers and you're still not getting called, it may be, let's look at the whole thing and how you're doing stuff. And the thing I have to stress to people too around resume, everybody thinks one resume fits everything. You have to customize for every job that you put in there so it reads right. And a lot of people are saying this is close, no cigar. And I also want to remind you too, the environment for computer science is extremely competitive. It is extremely competitive. It wasn't that way before, the pandemic. It wasn't. It was very, people got a lot of opportunities. When the pandemic came, was a pause. They got a lot of opportunities. I'm going to tell you, I'm just being honest with you. This is the saddest that I have seen it, and I've been at City College for over 20 years. It's tough. It's real tough. It's not impossible, but it's tough. And if you want to talk offline, you got my number. Call me. We'll talk.
I want to add something that I've come across in my practice. It's going to be very quick. Employers are using AI to detect AI. And so sometimes what they're doing is they're just double checking resumes to see if that resume was generated by AI. So I think that's, don't copy and paste and send it over to a potential employer. That's the key takeaway.
Thank you. So another question I have is, as far as a salary listed for an employment, what if you're asked to put in your requirement and does it disqualify you if it's not within the range that the employer was thinking? Is that an automatic disqualification?
If
You're
you
nodding your head.
if you put the highest amount and you're not qualified, you don't have to leverage for it, then it's going to hurt you. I mean, before the Pay Transparency Act, I would have in the job post, tell me your salary range, and then in the cover letter, people just like myself, okay, my range or my salary is X. But now to beat that, if you have to tell me what your range is, be flexible. What in New York and the 15 other states, there is that law. Look at the posting. If they say from 50,000 to 100,000, put that range. Don't put 50, 100,000. Put somewhere where you should start. Say 70,000 to 90,000, or because you can always go backwards. You can't go higher. Sometimes you'll have to wind up going lower, but you have to be able to negotiate. So you can't, when you do, be flexible. Because remember, look, benefits, right? What if they gave you, unlimited time off? Well, that's a perk that, you can't monetize it, but that's great. So you should put a flexible range, but you have to be comfortable. Don't lowball yourself. Don't highball yourself either, but put something where you're comfortable with. Because sometimes you're going to come back in negotiations, you're not going to get something. But I want everyone to win, but not to have that offer taken away. I've had that where people are greedy. And to me as an employer, if I see you're too greedy, you know what? You're all about the money. You're not about the job itself. So thank you. Next. So just be mindful.
Yeah.
Okay. This question is for Assad. How do you know when it's time to leave your current role when you have previously advocated for a promotion, especially when you are overperforming great PDP in your current role, but had the misfortune of being managed under 3 managers with no structure?
Your employer sucks. Simple as that. If you aren't being recognized at your job and you're being passed up for opportunities, it might be a time to start exploring other options. Is there, so there's a couple of things that come into play. Are you an at-will employee? That's number one. Are you a contracted employee? Do you have a contract with this employer? Most of the time, contracts stipulate how you move up, what you need to do, and over the course of time, you can move up. But I've seen this happen a lot. Managers, they're doing a great job and they don't move up because the employer doesn't want to move them up because they don't want to lose a great manager. And so at that point, you realistically just have to think, okay, I need to look at alternatives. And you know what? Moving from one employer to another, you can ask for a higher pay. You can ask for other benefits. It's not so much a legal question. I think it's just a strategy. And I think a lot of the panelists here can speak to how they've dealt with it in their own personal lives. But legally, there isn't any legal right or wrong way to approach it. It's not really a legal issue unless they're doing something illegal. And in order for me to find that out, I would need a lot more information. So.
Yeah, I can jump in as well. Just to echo what Assad said, if you know that you've been performing your best, you've made your best case, and the response from that manager doesn't leave any window, doesn't give you any sense that that person is open to reconsidering, the reasoning doesn't make sense to you. If you don't hear something like, right now the budget doesn't accommodate it, but we can reassess in 3 months or 6 months. If there's no commitment for you to move up or grow, then absolutely, it's time to move on if you know that you want to continue to grow and progress in your career. And you can always come back. Like I've done it, right? When I started at OMB, I started as an analyst, got promoted to senior analyst, got promoted up to supervising analyst, and then I sort of hit a block. There are the person, our manager at the time, it was clear that he was not going to promote me to the next level, so I knew it was time to leave, right? And I ended up leaving the organization. He ended up leaving the organization, and when he left, my former manager called me right back and said, "Hey, I have a management role. Are you interested?" So I came back and then, continued my career from there. So sometimes, I know it can be a bit scary. Sometimes we get comfortable but like don't get too comfortable, right? If we know that we aren't being compensated fairly for the work that we're doing, that the career growth, the title growth is just not there and it doesn't make sense for you, absolutely start exploring your options and make that jump.
One point to add to what Shanna just said, which is really important, don't ever burn any bridges. That's a perfect example of a employment situation where it wasn't working out for her. She moved on to another employer, but then was called back to a higher position that she originally wanted. So always keep those connections that you have with people that you have a good working relationship with at your employer.
One final question. So I've seen it a couple of times, and then if that's okay, trying if we can move on to the next portion. But I'm loving that everyone is connecting on LinkedIn. That's awesome. Please continue to share your link. But the last question is about moving in within the city government. So some folks are within that range, and then they want to move around, but there's that cap. Really? So how do you figure that out? And I think you might have already answered that, just by saying you see if you have to move on or not, but is there a way to sort of stay within the government or the state?
Yeah, I can start off on the city government side. So there are promotional exams that the city gives. There are various different civil service exams if you're a new hire starting, but there are also promotional exams that you can actually take one of these exams and then you get put on a list and your agency can decide to either pick you up or another agency looking to fill a role can call you off of that list. And then as long as you get pulled from that list and you get that job offer, you're automatically entitled to that new rate, which sometimes could be over 20% because you're moving from one title to a brand new title. So there's definitely that way where you can look around and look for the exams that you could be qualified for based on your interest.
Thank you. Thank you so much to all our wonderful speakers, for your time, for sharing all your experiences. Please continue to connect. We actually have an opportunity for you to network with your fellow alums. I'm gonna ask Shannon to spotlight you. You are all just really, the chat is blowing up. It's hard to keep track. So I apologize if there's a question that we didn't get to. Perhaps when you get into your breakout rooms, your fellow alums can sort of brainstorm, or you could figure out what would be the best strategy for your specific career move. I am also sharing resources. I just want to remind everyone of that. I will be sharing resources after the event, and you're welcome to connect with folks. I'll have my LinkedIn on there as well, so you can connect with me. But I'll turn it over to Shannon.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. Thank you so much, everyone. This has been so interesting. I've been trying to keep track of the chat, but also trying to remember things and make some notes myself. So now is going to be an opportunity to move into networking with your fellow CUNY alum peers. As everybody's been saying, the chat has been popping all evening. So now is your chance to sort of take that to the next level and use this as an opportunity to network with fellow graduates. For those of you who are not really sure how to approach it, try to relax. Keep in mind, this is sort of a virtual setting, so the pressure should be a little bit less, sort of low stakes. You're networking with peers and learning and helping one another. Introduce yourself. Reflect on some of the things that were just discussed in the panel. There certainly is a lot of material, everything from AI to salary negotiation and asking for a promotion, all of those things. Share your own ideas and thoughts about those kinds of things, and share pointers and ideas for your fellow alums on how they might be successful in their own negotiations. And certainly, I think everybody knows LinkedIn is a really good way to sort of use this as a springboard. So I encourage all of you to share your LinkedIn profiles with one another in the breakout rooms as well. So without any further comment from me, I'll go ahead and create the breakout rooms and send everybody there for a couple of minutes to do those things. We hope that you'll get as much out of this part of the session as you can, and that you'll use this as sort of, like I said, the beginning of what might be some really valuable partnerships and connections that you make. We will bring everybody back.
That was amazing.
Well, this is what we're here for. I want to hear all about it. I want to hear what you've learned, your takeaways. Are you going to do something different? Are you gonna, let me hear it.
So my group and I actually, so if I had to introduce myself, I'm Anthony. I'm a proud CUNY CSI alumni. I graduated in 2021. Yep, during pandemic. And then I just recently graduated with my master's from Yeshiva University. So that's really amazing. So I was mentioning to my group, we were talking about like the use of AI for resumes, and I remembered from my program specifically, we're not allowed to use AI because we have to use like a lot of research.
What?
Oh, sorry. Can you please mute? Go ahead. Oh, go ahead, Anthony.
My apologies for that. So yeah, so for our program because we're medical SOP, medical speech language pathology, like we're like not allowed to use AI, because if we were to use AI in our like assignments or whatnot, we would get in trouble. So that's why like I'm like
HIPAA violation.
trying to stay away a little bit from using AI, but I think now I could also try and use it if I want to.
Would you say Assad?
I know that there is confidentiality issues with using AI in certain certain spaces. For example, attorneys should not be using AI with client information at all. That's a violation. I know in the medical field, you shouldn't be using patient information. That being said, you can always frame hypothetical questions to AI. In my space in particular, there's been a lot of movement, and we just had I guess you can call it a suggestion from the court that said, if you decide to use AI and it's wrong, you're responsible. And it has already happened where prominent law firms their assistants have used AI to generate court documents with citations that do not exist.
Oh, yeah.
And they've been sanctioned. One particular case, $15,000 that came out of the law firm's pocket for wasting the court and the other side's time because they used AI, and AI generated AI just made up cases. So yeah, it's a very interesting time for a lot of different fields. So just be wary of how you use it.
Yes, that's true. It's an HIPAA in healthcare. It's an HIPAA violation just to even look on something in AI.
Hi,
Thank you.
may I chime in?
Okay. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, so I don't see his face, but I hear his voice. Oh, there he is, Mr. Bhatti. So I actually had a situation where I had to represent myself in court, and so it's a good thing for our justice system. And so part of my research, I had um, opted to use AI to look up court cases to give me precedent. But so ChatGPT does have these different tiers where if you pay a premium,
So,
they'll give you
so
they'll give
be very wary.
lawyers, yeah.
Be
So
very wary, and I'm going to tell you why. Case law is locked behind a paywall. There's two main companies that have a monopoly on legal cases and legal research, Westlaw and LexisNexis.
mhm,
An alternative is Google Scholar to look up cases. So yes, it opens the door to allow people to represent themselves, but to a certain extent,
mhm,
you do it at your own peril. And in terms of general legal concepts, it's great. You know, it's great for that. But I would not rely on AI to write a brief or a motion to a court,
no, not at
you
all.
know.
Yeah.
But to learn general legal concepts, you can ask AI, can you explain to me what a tort is
Mm,
or what the elements of a contract are, things like that. I believe that it would be very useful to
mm,
a pro se plaintiff or defendant. So
mm. Yeah, and I would even add that in terms of like references, like what it lists, you wouldn't just take it as gold, but you would then follow up on it to see if you can find those actual papers and read the
sure,
document.
absolutely, absolutely.
And there was something else you said earlier that I was thinking on like the last 15 minutes. What when you had said that I'm just skeptical. When you had said that a lot of these companies just use AI to detect that folks are using AI, I'm one of those folks who are in computer science. My bachelor's was in civil engineering, but I've managed to switch fields in software engineering, and it's ridiculous. And I just don't think that a recruiter at a Google or Amazon literally has the man hours to sit there and look at tens of thousands of applicants, because if I were them, I would use AI to do filters. So like how do you compete in a market like that? And this is specific like to my field where there are tens and if not hundreds of thousands of applicants. Like what do you do? You know?
That's a tough question for me to answer as an attorney. I don't have enough experience in that specific field to be able to answer that adequately. I know that companies have used AI to detect AI submissions, specifically in the academic realm.
Mhm,
If you submit a thesis, you have to submit it through a certain portal where that portal will detect whether or not you've used AI. So that's where I was getting at. I think the question was asked, should you or should you not opt in or opt out of submitting your resume to a company that is using AI?
mhm.
I mean, that's a judgment call. That's a judgment call, right? At
Yeah.
the end of the day, if you get called out on information on your resume, um, I don't know. That's a tough one. Are you going to use AI to make your resume better? I don't know.
Mm.
If you
So,
do, I'm sorry, but that's a tough one.
and the conversation always turns to AI. So it might be we might want to look into our next event might be on AI. But I do, so just one last question, Michelle, and then we do have to end. Oh, you're muted.
My question is going to be on AI.
It is going to be on AI.
It is, and it's going to be Mr. Bhatti, or anybody on the panel that can answer it. So, I used to be a recruiter for central office in at CUNY. I worked in recruitment ops, and I came across a lot of this, and I do a lot of research on the subject. I'm a proponent for AI, but ethical use of AI. So, and I'm previously a grad student too that used it. But again, ethical use only. My question is, what for the recruitment world, if you are an employee, if you're a job seeker, what would be an unethical reason to use AI to bolster your resume? What would that look like?
Don't lie on
Like,
your
can you
resume.
give me an example of that? I mean, that would be different from, say a job seeker creating a resume and elaborating in their own language
I
on
don't
things
think
that
there's
they've done.
really quick. I don't think there's anything wrong with using AI to elaborate on something you've actually done. Because what's going to happen is you're going to get called in, you're going to get a telephone interview, you're going to get an in-person interview, right? You're not getting hired based on you submitting your resume. You might get an offer letter, and that's maybe, but somebody in real life is going to talk to you, right? That's just the way it is. Unless it's a remote job, but even then, they're going to talk to you. You're going to get a Zoom call or a telephone call. They're going to parse that resume. They're going to ask you questions. If it's really your story and it's not made up, then that's fine. Don't make up stuff.
Yeah,
As
I
long as
completely agree. I mean, that's unethical because even if I were drafting my own resume and I'm
that's
embellishing on the truth before AI,
yeah,
that's still unethical, right? But I
yeah.
think what I was looking at was when you guys were speaking about it before, you were saying that companies were blackballing people who were submitting resumes with AI, but I'm not aware of any technology currently that detects that is really like 100 proof right now because I understand how the technology works and finding the algorithms for detecting if somebody used AI, say in an essay or a writing sample, a dissertation or whatever it is. I don't see, I've seen that. What I haven't seen is in the recruitment world and in the job seeking world, them using that because why would they want to invest into that software, even if it's a beta software, to scan my resume to say, well, I don't think Michelle really knows how to do all that stuff, so I'm going to blackball her. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I really can't speak to that. That's not something that, I've encountered yet, but I have a feeling that that is going to be a new area of lawsuits.
Yeah, I agree.
How we deal with it, I don't know. I don't know. There's going to be a multitude of different areas of law that are going to, develop um, as AI starts to take over. It's a brand new area and everybody is learning. The court systems are learning, employers are learning, employees are learning. It's just, it's the Wild West right now.
It is. And
We're
I feel like
definitely gonna need a part two of
thank
the
you so
CUNY
much.
multicast. No, thank you. Thank you so much for being engaged and for asking all your questions. And I hope everyone enjoyed the program and learned new skills that will help guide you as you advance through your careers. This concludes our event. As I mentioned before, I will follow up with everyone on the link to this event plus resources. Thank you again so much to all the CUNY campuses for collaborating, and thank you so much to all the alumni for attending. Again, please keep in contact with your alumni relations office. We do want to hear from you. Stay connected with us, and we hope to see you again soon.